Hello and welcome to We Are the Radical Monarchs post-film conversation. This conversation is a special program between CIFF Streams and Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards as part of Cleveland Book Week, presented by the Cleveland Foundation. My name is Eric Siler, and I am a film, media arts, and communications professor from Cleveland State University, as well as moderator for this conversation. I am joined by 5 incredible individuals that you probably recognize already from just seeing the film. First, let me introduce to you Linda Goldstein Knowlton. She is the director, producer for this documentary, Next, we have Anayvette Martinez. She's the co-founder and CEO of programs and communications for Radical Monarchs, as well as a subject in the film. Next, we have Marilyn Hollinquest. She is the co-founder and CEO of finance and operations for the Radical Monarchs, as well as a subject in the film. And we also pleased to be joined by 2 actual Radical Monarchs, Dillard, and we also have Lupita Martinez. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this post-film conversation. I'm just very pleased to meet you and that you are able to join us here today. Let me let everyone know that Lupita, being a monarch, life doesn't stop. She has a prior commitment, so she's going to be leaving us in about 20 minutes or so. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking to her first. Not that I'm playing favorites. All of you are my favorites, but I want to just make sure we get some adequate responses from her. But I'm going to start off with your mom, Lupita. I'm going to start off with Anayvette. And it was your brainchild, the Radical Monarchs. You started this. And can you just talk about a little bit more about what inspired the Radical Monarchs and make a distinction between the Monarchs and maybe a Brownies troop or a Girl Scout troop?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Hi, Eric. Hi, everybody. So when my daughter was in 4th grade, a bunch of her classmates were joining a local traditional scouting troop. And so naturally she wanted to join. And when I looked at the composition of the troop, I saw that she would have been one of 2 girls of color in the troop. And so I had some, feelings about that and started to think about what would it look like to start a troop that centers the experiences of young girls of color and where they could actually earn badges based on social justice movement work. Instead of sewing or learning how to build a fire. And so I had this idea and I pitched it to my daughter. And she lit up the minute I told her and was like, yes, mommy, that's what I want to do. Let's do it. And I was like, okay, I guess I got to make this happen for my kid. And so I knew I couldn't do it by myself. And so I approached my best friend, Marilyn Hollinquest. And I was like, hey, I have this idea of doing this real group for my daughter and her friends. Would you do it with me? And Marilyn said hell yes, that's an amazing idea. Let's do it. And so it definitely, the Radical Monarchs is definitely inspired by, traditional scouting in some ways, in terms of the badges, but also by the Black Panther movement, the Young Lords, the Brown Berets, the Young Peril, Yellow Peril. And so that's where we take all of our inspiration from.
Oh, great. And Lupita, I'm glad that you were excited because sometimes when parents come up with ideas, they would say, Mom, what are you thinking? But you didn't do that. So you jumped right in and you've had some tremendous opportunities and experiences with this group. What's been the most memorable experience being part of the Radical Monarchs?
I'd say the most memorable experience with being with the Radical Monarchs would probably be when we earned the Radical Advocacy Badge. We actually went to go to the state capitol in Sacramento and we pitched our different ideas and plans in order to lift up a lot of issues in our community. And that was just a really powerful moment for us to be lobbying as sisters to these Congress people. It was really amazing.
Oh, great. I thought that was a really great highlight as well too. But nobody would really know about the Monarchs as much without the director, Linda Goldstein Knowlton. How did you find out about the Monarchs and decide to do a documentary about them? I think you're muted. Let's try that again. That's fine.
Actually, a lot of people knew about the Monarchs, which is how I learned about them, about the Radical Monarchs. Because when they, in one of their very first marches, they were covered by a ton of press. And so I read about them in The Guardian online. And when I saw what their mission was and what their vision statement was, I was so curious. And, you know, I had to meet Anayvette and Marilyn and see what this was all about. And I thought that what would be really interesting to do would to follow them for a year, because no one really, you know, a year in the life of creating a movement, because usually people look at movements after they're well established or, you know, looking back on them. And I just thought, what does it take to actually start a movement? And they had so much attention on them from this press that they had requests from over 200 cities and I don't know, I think 15 countries for to start troops. So not only were they starting a movement, they were starting a movement with a huge amount of pressure.
Oh, great. So once you learned about it, I think did it take what, about 3 years of filming or something like that?
Yeah, we filmed for 3.5 years, and then so I'd say it's almost 5 years, 4.5 years till we premiered at South by Southwest last year. And it was so exciting because we actually had the same group and one other monarch there for our world premiere at South by.
Okay, well, great. I think you did a great job of capturing the essence of the Radical Monarchs. And speaking of the Radical Monarchs today, I'm going to hop over to Marilyn. Marilyn, can you tell everyone about the current status of the Radical Monarchs and how it's doing and how many troops do you have and so forth?
Sure. So there's a total of 6 troops, 2 of which are alumni troops that are very active. And so we do have an alumni program. So once Radical Monarchs graduate, they are able to participate in that. And so just to highlight some of what the alumni have done so far is they actually self-organized and got together on Zoom and decided to do some actions in regards to the Black Lives Matter movement. And so they had a vigil for Black women and femmes just to uplift that Black women and femmes are also impacted by police violence, by vigilantes. And then there were a bunch of other things, a whole laundry list of things which they are working through and doing. So that was just a beautiful piece of organizing. It was really well attended and social distance and all that kind of jazz. And then we have 4 new troops, which are starting their 2nd cycle of badges. And so those are in Northern California. So there's a total of 6 troops. And we are in the works of launching troops in LA. And so we're just really trying to, you know, meet the demand with our small team. We have a team of 3. We're also hiring to help me out with the finance and operations. So we're just slowly and steadily and sustainably, I will say, growing our team and meeting the demand as much as possible and as much as funding allows.
That's wonderful. Are there other Radical Monarchs throughout the country or maybe internationally that you know of?
No, we decided to stick close to home. And so they're all in Northern California right now. And so with LA, we'll stretch to Southern California. But as long as, you know, we get funding to do that work and, you know, once COVID is over, only God knows when that will be. But when it's safe to travel, then we'll be able to, you know, launch troops in other states around the US and maybe hopefully internationally. But it is really important that we help train the troop leaders. Like they have quarterly trainings, there's technical assistance that they receive, there's a whole package of support that they receive in order to implement the curriculum according to our pedagogy, like the way that we teach social justice.
Wonderful, wonderful. We need to hear from Diani. Diani, why did you join the Radical Monarchs knowing that you were the only African-American girl that would be a part of it? What drew you to the Radical Monarchs?
What drew me to the Radical Monarchs was Lupita, actually. Lupita and I attended elementary school together, and so I've known her for a very long time. And when I found out about this, I was really intrigued because I grew up being the only African-American girl in our class from kindergarten to 5th grade. And I even moved on to middle school being the only African-American girl from 6th through 8th. So I never exactly had a lot of people who understood where I was coming from as a girl of color. And I definitely wanted to make new connections and make new friends who eventually became my sisters. And so I was really interested in finding out more. And I also have always, my family has always been involved with social justice. I have an uncle who was a former Black Panther. And then my mother has always been involved with social justice ever since I could walk. And so I have always wanted to do more, especially since I noticed that there are a lot of things negative that are happening out in the world, and I wanted to make a change.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm glad that you and Lupita were friends, and it sounds like you may have been a part of this even if you didn't know Lupita and just heard about it. You sound like you're looking to express yourself in various ways. That's great. Let me just go, and Lupita, speaking of expressing yourself, you've expressed yourself in the film. Like, for instance, you had to speak before city council, before all those people at I think you shared with me, you were 16, you were a lot younger back then. How did you develop your speaking skills and the nerve to actually speak in front of people and to be involved in social justice?
I think that when it comes to public speaking, it's kind of been something that I've been very comfortable with. I've grown up kind of speaking, as like a little girl, watching my mom speak at events or conferences, or my tia Marilyn. And I think that kind of just built up that courage as I got older. And sometimes it is a little hard for me. I do get, like, everyone gets nervous. Sometimes I get nervous, but I do practice a little bit before I speak, and then I just go from there.
Oh, that's good. That's good. You seem natural at it. And we saw you in the film being involved in protests. Do you know how many protests you've been involved in?
Man, I don't even think there's a number for that, but
Wow.
I have been to a number of protests and actions. Yeah, me and Johnny both have, yeah.
Well, what was the last protest you were involved in?
Ooh, it's been a minute.
Probably the one for George Floyd and Breonna
yeah.
Taylor.
Yes, there was a George Floyd and Breonna Taylor march that I did. Yeah.
Okay, recently. Okay, oh, good. So that's pretty amazing that you had the nerve to do that. And tell us, are you still part of the Radical Monarchs? I know it's a certain window. It focuses on 3rd to 5th graders, but how are you connected with the Monarchs now?
Yeah, so once we graduate from the Radical Monarchs, there's something called the Alumni Program. And what that means is the older girls, so Troop 1 and Troop 2, those are the 2 troops that have graduated so far. We are now mentors to the younger girls. We were also super involved in the interview process for the new troop leaders, for the new troops. And we also kind of just mentor them. We go on different trips. For example, we went on the Sacramento Radical Advocacy badge trip with them because we had already gone on that trip. So we got to, give them some tips and things like that. And yeah.
Oh, good. That I'm glad that you're staying connected and that your mom and Marilyn made it possible for the girls to stay connected. And the name, Lupita, can you take credit for the name, or your mom takes credit for the name? Who came up with the name Radical Monarchs?
Everyone, all of Troop 1, we came up with the name together.
Okay, you came with it together and it stuck. And Anayvette, when they came up with the name, did you like it? Did you think, oh, maybe we're pushing it a little bit, or how did you feel about that name?
I thought it was great. So when we had to change our name, when we had to draw brownies, we knew we wanted to keep Radical. And so we had all the Monarchs brainstorm a bunch of different, names. And then 3, I think, floated to the top. And then we had them vote on the final 3, and Monarchs is the one that won. And so it was Radical Monarchs. And the Monarchs really liked it because they felt like it was fitting. They liked the image of the monarch butterfly, the fact that it represents transformation, growth, also migration. So I think it ended up being a really good name for us.
Yeah, that sounds very fitting for the work that the girls are doing. Um, I'm going to go back over to Linda. In terms of um, information in the film, 3.5 years is a long time to film, and obviously, you can't fit everything into the film from all that footage. What are some things that you filmed that you that didn't make it into the film that you would like people to know?
I'm just laughing because Marilyn is laughing because she just, we all became pretty close. But in the beginning, Marilyn would be like, "You're back again? You're still here? When are you going to stop?" And then she
Linda
started.
said it was going to be a year.
And then you'd be like looking to Katie, who's my producing partner and our editor, and she'd be like, "You have so much to watch," you know, making me feel bad. Anyway, yes, Katie is a miracle worker. You know, there were so many. There were so many moments. It's really hard. It's really hard to say. I mean, I'm excited by the fact that because it was 3.5 years, you could really see the monarchs start as these little girls, right? And really transform into these young women. And I mean, when, you know, speaking about Sacramento, I mean, I get chills when I think about it. The way they held themselves and the way the members of the Congress and the state house, sorry, responded to them. It's like the girls were standing up straight, and then the people responded and kind of wasn't like, "Oh, these little kids, and you know, what are they here for? They're on a tour of the Capitol." It's like, no, they were advocating for their communities, and they really commanded so much respect. And that, I don't know, that just made me tear up. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's that was a powerful moment with the monarchs, and you did a great job of capturing that as well. Marilyn, in the film, you were known as the inward-facing leader of the monarchs. You know, working behind the scenes while Anayvette was out with facing. And at one point you mentioned in the film, you said there is no curriculum for like second graders, and ethnic studies is an option. And you also said that we need to teach social justice like we teach some STEM subjects. Can you expand upon that sentiment a little bit? How it is important to have social justice like a STEM subject?
Sure. So STEM subjects are seen as necessary. They're very much so pushed in terms of the education system, whether it's public or private or charter, like any type of school that you have. Everybody is like, science and math, we need to be ahead in science and math. And I think it is just as important, maybe even more so, especially in these times, that young people are exposed to social justice topics, and not just like as an optional thing where like, oh, you can take maybe an ethnic studies class, you know, as an elective or something like that. I think it's really important because people are like, oh yes, we need to work together, or, you know, there's all this polarization because of social media, and working together is a hard skill if you want to put it into that binary of soft and hard skills. And so when you say like, oh, there's so much polarization, what is the remedy to that? And to me, it's social justice, teaching young people, teaching everybody, no matter their age. One, like the injustices that society is built upon. Two, you need to recognize them. And then three, you need to have actions to remedy those. Like, it's not just going to magically be, oh, we had a Black president, so we're good now. Like, no, it's a system. It needs to be dismantled and replaced with something else. And in order to even have that kind of radical imagination to think about what it could be, then you definitely need to have a strong core of social justice learnings and understandings. And then from there, you know, proceed to imagine and implement those things.
Okay, I think that's very valid. You know, this is the world around us, and you know you know, it needs to be taught. I know Lupita, Deanna, I didn't forget about you. I'm just going to jump over to Lupita, and I'm going to let you go, Lupita. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Deanna about your most memorable. Lupita, I'm going to ask you about what your plans are for the future. What do you plan to do? Do you and future plans?
Okay. I think that I have probably two, I guess, ideas or main goals of possible careers that I could do when I'm older. I think maybe being an immigration lawyer. I'm currently doing a law internship that's really awesome. I'm getting kind of really into what it means to be in government and politics. And I think that being an immigration lawyer specifically would be really true to me because I do have a lot of undocumented family. Also, I really do love to make people laugh. So maybe being a comedian and kind of bringing social justice in that comedy as a way to teach people, because I think that as we learn about these really difficult topics, it's important to cultivate joy as well. So I'd say those two things, they kind of go hand in hand. I could like make the comedy thing my little side hustle, or we'll figure it out.
Oh, okay. So you're a comedian. So you tell jokes to your friends and family?
Not jokes. I mean, sometimes I'm just kind of like naturally like, you know, I guess.
She's naturally just kind of funny and silly and goofy.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, a hidden talent there, and you know, comedy is a great way to bring about conversation and change as well too.
Yeah.
With that, what's the lasting thing, Lupita, that you want people to know about you, either that was in the film or not in the film? If someone watched the film, what would you want people to really know about you?
I'd say just that I'm like a human being like anyone else, you know, just being portrayed in a documentary. I'm not like a perfect person. And so I think that a lot of times in like documentaries or movies, like people can get portrayed differently, but I'm just like a regular teenager, you know, I like go to the movies on Saturdays. Well, not now, but like, you know, yeah, I do have like a life aside from Radical Monarchs, even though it does take a big portion of it.
Well, great. Well, I so appreciate you joining us and taking time out of your busy schedule. And I wish you all the best. I know you have to leave us, so I'm going to say goodbye to you now. It's great seeing you. Thank you. Okay, great. Wonderful, daughter Anayvette. So let me jump over to Deanna. Deanna, your mom made a cameo in there in the documentary, and she said that this gives you like a sense of sisterhood, and she wants to change the world, you to change the world in a radical way. Do you feel like you're living up to these things that she said in the documentary?
Every day. I definitely think I do every day. I've come really far with Radical Monarchs, and I definitely think that because from her support and from the support of the Radical Monarchs, I have taken that confidence I grew with the Radical Monarchs and incorporated it into my own community. So whether it be at school or if I'm in just a space where it's brought up and there's an issue involved, I immediately know what to do and I have the confidence to do so, and yeah.
Oh, great. And in terms of protests, are you still actively involved in protests at all?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
I currently go to an art school. I go to Ruth Soda School of the Arts in San Francisco. And my school, I'm one of the main speakers for our BSU. So I'm the junior representative. And as a junior representative, we have brought up the idea of doing a peaceful yet safe protest. And we did it in my neighborhood, Bayview Hunters Point, where lots of artists came together. They brought their music, they brought their art pieces, they had spoken word students come, and we just marched and we chanted and we all came together as a community to speak against police brutality.
Oh, that's great. That's great that you can do that. I'm sure you are influencing other young girls as well too. We're going to hear more from you in a moment, but let me go back over to Anayvette. And in the film, you come across as a teacher in a way? I know you talked a little bit about your background, about your parents and so forth. And I like the little part in the film when you says you told the girls to massage their brains because they used them a lot. And you had this outwardness. How did you develop this outwardness to, lead such a organization?
Yeah. I've always been an extrovert, of sorts. So it comes naturally to me to talk to people and to talk in front of, a crowd. Not to say that I don't get nervous, but I just kind of, it comes natural to me. I don't have formal teacher training, but I went into youth work right out of college. And so I've been working with young people for a very long time, for 15 to 20 years at this point. And so in being a youth worker, you're kind of like a teacher, right? But you do like after school stuff and like, work development programs for young people. And so in that, I think I really was able to develop my craft. And it didn't come naturally right away. I mean, I definitely, had some lessons that I had to learn about how you work with young people. But by the time the Radical Monarchs came around, I had already had, 10, 15 years under my belt. And so that's why it comes very naturally to me now to speak to young people, to listen to young people, and to give them the support they need so they can lead, and develop the kind of world they want to live in.
Well, wonderful. I mean, your enthusiasm is uncontagious, and I wish you the best and continue to inspire young girls and all people. Going back over to Linda, let's talk a little bit more about the film. I know some people watching this are maybe budding filmmakers and so forth. And you did a couple of interesting things in the film. One was that you use news audio bites to introduce new segments. Can you talk about that? Why did you choose to take that path besides keeping your mind sane and what's next and what was before?
Right. I think that with when you have a little bit of a longitudinal film, right? It wasn't my year in the life film. And because the events leading up to the 2016 election and the aftermath were so fresh in everyone's mind we filmed during that and afterwards, and it was so, there were so many touchstone moments, and we just thought, what is a way to keep track of time? So it reminds people of like, oh, wow, there were these other people who were in the race in 2016, but also issues that were going on during that time, that it wasn't only the presidential race, it was, the contaminated water in Flint, it was the things that happened in Missouri, at the university in terms of student protests. So there'd be touchstone moments as a way to know that you were traveling through time, because otherwise I think as a viewer, even though you're seeing the girls grow, you really want to be able to feel grounded. Where am I in time? So instead of having a calendar and the pages flipping like they used to do in the 50s in old movies, we just thought that would be a creative way to keep people grounded.
Well, great, and it certainly worked well, especially in the film. We could see how the girls have grown too. So it, eliminated some confusion how someone grew over 2 or 3 years, so forth. And Marilyn, getting back to you, in one part of the film, we see you talking a little bit about your past and how you were raised in a strict religious fashion and so forth. And your part in the Radical Monarchs, were you looking when Anayvette approached you about doing this? How did your past help shape, your work with the Radical Monarchs in that sense?
I think my past, my upbringing inspired me because I would have loved to have something like Radical Monarchs when I was younger. I just had so many questions, and in the, very like strict conservative biblical framework I was raised in, there wasn't space to ask those questions. And so I just would imagine like, okay, what would it be like if I had something like this? And then also what inspired me were the strong women I was raised by. They definitely would not call themselves feminists, but I would say they were definitely versions of independence that I saw and was inspired by. And there were also things too that I was like, okay, self-care needs to be more at the forefront of my life, like not just my role as a mother or my role as, you know, someone in a romantic relationship or a friendship. Like I need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself first so that I can better take care of other people. And so sustainability, which involves, you know, self-care and all that sort of things, is one of our values of Radical Monarchs that Anayvette and I came up with. And so, yeah, I think that's what inspired me from my past, my growing up.
That's good. That's good, and it certainly shows and the work that you've done with the organization. Going back to Diani, I asked Lupita this. What about your most memorable experience with the Radical Monarchs? What has it been?
I have so many that I can say. I do think that something that I would definitely think about all the time as a memorable experience would be when we went to go watch the movie for the first time in a little theater. That that was wow. I definitely was feeling really proud of all of us. And when we had exited the theater, a lot of people came. These kids came up to us and they were like, "You were so inspiring. Oh my gosh, can I follow you on Instagram? How can I do more? You're so inspirational." And just hearing that from people just really hit home, because I know that all of us have worked really hard to make sure that we got here. And especially Linda and the crew and Marilyn and Anayvette, like they all worked so hard for us to get to where we are, and just seeing it all come together nicely and people really appreciating it was really memorable.
Well, that's really, really good that people had a really positive reaction to the film. And I mean, my most memorable part of the film was when you were another monarch was talking about was having difficulty with other kids picking on her, and you just reached out and just gave her a hug. And that was you. It wasn't staged. It was natural. And I'm sure you've had other moments like that as well too, in which you took on that leadership role.
Yeah, that was my cousin Maya, actually. We were first cousins, and just seeing her like that personally hurt, you know, because I love her just as much as I love all the other sisters in Radical Monarchs. And there are plenty of times where it wasn't shown in documentary, but we have done that for each other a whole lot over the years, and we have always been there for each other.
Well, great, great. That's good. And I'm going to go back to Anayvette. The girls are good. They seem like they're good girls. In general, is that so, that they're just generally good girls to work with?
They're brilliant and amazing young women. Yes, absolutely.
Right, and it comes across. So, well, what advice would you give to maybe a young person or even a parent who wants to expose their child or themselves to social justice? What would you want them to do? Read a book? Do participate in something?
Yeah, I mean, I think that now is the time. You know, I think that we're in this moment collectively as a nation, reckoning with, the history that, this country was founded on, that was really on the backs of Black and brown people. And so I think that families or young people that want to be activated, I think that this is the perfect time to be activated. I think there's tons of great films, including this one, to watch, to get inspiration. There's definitely tons of books. I would encourage them to seek out what already exists in their community. There's no need to maybe reinvent the wheel, though sometimes there is a need to invent the wheel like we did, but maybe there's already a group, of families in your community that are, doing radical activism work, and you can join forces together and go to marches together. I think one of the most powerful things we've seen come out of the COVID and the shelter in place has been kind of the mutual aid that has been happening between communities of color, between, you know, queer and trans communities. So I think that now is a good time to reach out and to build with other folks and do this work.
That's okay. That's really good advice. I hope people take advantage of what you said. I appreciate those words. Going back over to Linda, you're talented. I must say, you did a lot of subtle things in the film, such as one part you did was when you focused on the negative attention that was given to the monarchs. You know, you showed the sound by saying that the woman said that, oh, these girls should be focused on sewing and friendship instead of, you know, raising little races. And you felt it was important to bring up that point. But when you brought it up, you had such a genuine response. You had someone quote and say, this is our world, and I just want to help unpack what's going on around them. So you did such crafty things without, you know, just moving the film along. Can you talk about your style and documentary filmmaking? Some people want to be like really controversial, want to just focus and hone in on something really negative or controversial, but you just want to present the facts. Can you just elaborate on your style a little bit? You're muted again, so.
Sorry about that. Sorry. Yeah, that was Anayvette who had the really fantastic explanation.
Right.
I really wanted to have an answer for, you know, the racists and the haters out there of really understanding that there's not one point of view. And so the idea of unpacking it, like who gets to decide what an image is, right? So Anayvette had a great answer about that. Yeah, the films that I make, I'm not interested in gotcha films. I don't want to film a train wreck. I don't want to, just makes me, that just, it's not what I'm about. So what I look for when I'm making a film is ultimately, I know that film is a really powerful medium, and that we have a privilege of putting them out into the world. And so what messages are we putting into the world? You know, I don't want to put negative messages into the world. I want to put inspirational and powerful people, whether you know their names or not. I want to put them and their ideas and their efforts into the world. So I like to show people who are trying, you know, that they have an idea and that they are working towards an idea, whether it succeeds or not, right? It's about the effort. So I'd say that's present through my films. And I think that there's also a theme of really reminding people, not without hitting them over the head, but that you're not alone. No one's alone, that we are all in this together. Whatever community you're a part of, you are in it. And then in terms of other communities, there's allyship and there's mutual aid. And I just feel like we are all human beings on this planet together, and we should act like it. So the idea that you're never alone, I think, is an important secret, subtle theme in all of my films.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know. That really is good to know. And you did some other things, like I like the way you use Amia in the film. You know, she has some memorable quotes like being small and mighty. And when she was at the state capitol, she says, I was meant to be here. And you did such a great job of capturing those bites as to make the film move along. So I think that's...
She made it easy. They all made it easy. You know, that's why we had like 9 million hours of film, because there were so many great moments and opportunities and things that everybody were doing. So, you know, we were just there all the time. And they were their, you know, brilliant selves. So they made it easy for us. They made it hard for us because we had so much material, but they made it easy for us.
Oh, good. I'm glad that they did. We're going to be wrapping up, so I just want to talk to Marilyn and Diani a little bit more. Diani, I just want to, let me go to Marilyn next. And same question I asked Anayvette. Advice. What advice would you give to a young person or to a parent or someone who wants to expose themselves to social justice what materials would you want them to seek?
Well, oh, Deani, go ahead.
No problem.
Oh, no, that's for you, Marilyn. I want
Yeah,
to
I
ask
thought
a
you were
question
talking to
for
me. Go
Deani.
ahead.
Okay. So I think one accessible place to start is to, if you go to, I think it's pbs.org. So Anayvette and I created this accompanying material for the documentary. So there's a lesson plan there for teachers. There's also a discussion guide. There's a reading list as well. So we were able to select books and things that we thought would be helpful, especially geared towards young people. So that's a starting place. I would definitely start there. And then the other thing I would say is, when you're looking for things, don't overwhelm yourself with knowledge. I think it's really important to do it in small bites. And then also, if you're, maybe this is your first time becoming active in the political process, the whole spectrum of things that you can do, whether you're all about trying to get out the vote or trying to help people in your local community, pick one thing and stick to it. Like jumping all over the place and trying to do everything helps no one, and it just stresses yourself out. So pick one thing that's manageable for you to do and then do that thing. And so the other thing I just want to lift up, what I think Anayvette said this, is look at what your local communities are already doing. There's a rich history, or I'd like to say herstory, of organizing. Currently, there are so many ways to plug in and be a part of the solution. So look at our, discussion guides and things and reading list, and then also see what's happening around you locally and participate in that.
Wonderful. Really good advice. It's good that you mentioned a resource there and that there's a guide there as well too. Last question for Deani is, we heard about Lupita's plans for the future. What about your plans for the future?
So similarly to Lupita, I am really invested in social justice work. I always have and always will be. So I definitely would want to do more work with that, and especially working with youth by doing so. And I'm also an artist myself, and so I would like to incorporate spreading the word and getting information out through my art. So yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, this has been a really great conversation. I'm just going to ask one question and I'll have all of you answer it, and I'll go in reverse order. I'll start with you, Deani. It's the same question I asked Lupita before she left, is what do you want people to know about you that was or was not in the film? Well, what information would you want people to know? Because they only saw like an hour and a half of you, but there's more to you than that 90 minutes.
I'm also gonna give a little advice while saying this. I personally am a shy person, surprisingly. I get super nervous when speaking publicly, and even in school presentations, I get super nervous, I get worked up, and that just goes to show that anybody can do it, even me, and being that I'm a private person, I still express myself and express my passion towards social justice in plenty of ways. And I believe that, if you just put effort in and you have confidence in yourself and confidence in the passion that you have towards a certain topic, then you can do anything you put your mind to.
Well, that's good advice, and you did quite well. I could not tell that you were a shy person at all. Thanks a lot to your leaders and to your sisters. Let me go over to Marilyn. Same question as, what information do you want people to know about you that was or was not in the film?
That's a good question. I will bounce off of what Deani said. So I'm definitely an introvert. I'm a learned extrovert. And that's from, years of being a teacher in the classroom. And then also initially lots of like Christmas speeches at church and that sort of thing. That's where I really got my start and learned how to use my voice is, growing up in church. And I think the other thing people would maybe want to know about me or should know after watching the film, or maybe something that wasn't covered. I think it actually was covered. Like, I'm just really enjoy being goofy and having fun, and that this was built out of friendship. Like Anayvette and I are besties, and so like we do a lot of laughing together and giggling as well, and I think that's a huge part, a huge foundational piece. Like we've known each other for, I did the count, I want to say it's 12 or 15 years. It's been a long time. So
15 years. 15 years.
15? Okay, yes, 15. So we've known each other for 15 years, which to say that is just a trip. But that to say, like, you know, I know some people say, oh, you shouldn't work with your friends or family. It depends on who the friends and family are. And we happen to have very complementary personalities. Like Anayvette is an extrovert, I'm an introvert. You know, I handle finance and operations because I live for paperwork, actually. I like to dot those I's and cross those T's, and I think it's really important back of house work that needs to be done. And Anayvette is like a rock star when it comes to social media. If it was up to me, I might be a hermit, like, you know, so our yin and yang, you know, our duality really works well together.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I can tell that it is working. Same question, Anayvette. Well, what do you want people to know about you?
Oh my goodness. I think that you really see a lot of who I am holistically in the film. You know, I think Linda did a really great job doing that. I think that one of the first things that me and Marilyn said to each other when we got to see the final film was we were just kind of like, wow, like she really captured the blood, sweat, and tears that this journey has been, you know? So I think that, yeah, the story is said well. And I think that the way I'm portrayed in the film is pretty holistic. I guess I would just lift up the thing that I always like, me and Marilyn always like to name is that we're both Scorpio twins and birthday twins. So me and Marilyn have the same exact birthday, same day, same year, just different times of birth. And so I think that it was, you know, written in the stars that we meet, we be best friends, and we start this movement together.
That's wonderful, wonderful. And I just want to close with a question to Linda about, you know, what's next? What's next for you? You told a great story, Radical Monarchs 2 or other stories?
Marilyn is like, no. And I love you for it. No, I think if there's a Radical Monarchs 2, I think it's one of the Radical Monarchs telling their story. You know, I think it's the continuation for them to tell their story. I have started a film that is actually in the zero tolerance and family separation space. So I'm currently in production on that.
Well, wonderful. I wish you the best with that. Well, ladies, it's been an awesome, awesome conversation. I enjoyed spending some time with you. Thank you all for taking some time out of your schedule. Linda Goldstein Knowlton, Anayvette Martinez, Marilyn Hollinquest, Dillard, and Lupita Martinez, who left us a little earlier. Thank you all very much for joining us. I wish you all continued success and all the best. And for our viewers out there, I'd like to thank you for being a part of this conversation. For more information about CIFF's Dreams and Anisfield-Wolf Book Awards, please visit clevelandfilms.org. I'm Eric Siler. Thank you.